And so the day-to-day running of things has been, it's starting to hit our expectations, I would say. On the other side of things, like the paperwork and stuff like that, it has been a very mixed bag. I was getting through my social security payments that I have to go and make, and it just struck me that after 2 years my accountant hadn't asked to see my books.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd better go in and get some clarification as to why they didn't want to see how many thousands of euros I'd spent building the place and buying all of the equipment, and why they didn't want to see my fuel receipts and stuff like that. And so they explained to me that if you earn less than 200,000 euros a year, that you automatically get put on what's called imposta simplificada, which is a simple tax regime. And it appears that that regime is job dependent. And so I was explaining that, and the fact that, you know, oh, you don't need to do that. The government takes into account your expenses, and then they work out how much social security and imposto you need to pay from my till. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And he said, and so, for instance, your next month, you need to pay 175 euros in social security alone. And I was like,
suddenly
whoa,
like that.
Whoa, no.
Yeah.
You must be joking, surely. And so every month I have to take a reading from my till, which is called SAFT. And that goes to my accountant. And so everything is recorded on Sage. And that is what my accountant uses to put my totals in to Finances. And so I was like, look, this can't be right. You're asking me for more money in social security that, you know, that's pretty much every single bit of profit that I have.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of a breakdown in communication. My accountants are lovely. They really are lovely. And I wouldn't be without them.
Matty's looking for a recommendation, by the way. So I think he's listening closely here.
Yeah, and so and it turns out that when I set the business up 2 years ago, my principal activity was listed as agriculture. Yeah, and so they've got me down as olivicultura, so cultivation of olives, viniculture, and aviculture. So to them, to Finances, if you needed your olive trees harvesting or you needed them pruning, I was your man. And so that is what they call a service-based industry, a purely service-based industry. And so for that, when it comes to the end of the month, they take my expenses as 25% of the gross that comes from my till, and that 75% of it is profit.
Right. Bit misleading.
And then they apply tax to that 75%. And so by this time, I'm getting a little bit flustered.
Yeah.
And I explained to them that I didn't do very good at school, and maths wasn't my strong subject. But can I please have a piece of paper and a pen, because I just want to run something by them.
Yeah.
I got a piece of paper and a pen, and at the top I wrote batatas. And I was like, for instance, to make the maths easy, €1, I buy them at, say, €1 a kilo. Yeah? And then to keep the maths simple, say I apply 25% as my gross markup. Yeah. So I sell that potato for €1.25 a kilo. And so in my head, I'm saying my gross profit is 25 cents. Yeah.
Yes.
But obviously I've still got fuel and stuff like that to take out. And so I thought that you'd be taxing me on 25 cents rather than 95 cents.
Yes.
And I said, surely you can see from this one example that asking me for this is just completely unsustainable.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is normal. And I was like, okay. And so I went away and stewed for a couple of days, and we really did consider closing the doors on the shop.
Did you really? Wow, how sad is that?
Yeah, it was just one of those things. It's like, I can't have it that every time I make a sale, it's costing me more in tax
Yes.
and social security than I'm earning.
Yeah.
And
The Dragon's Den wouldn't be putting money into that, would they?
no, I can't see it. No. And so my accountancy firm, they have another branch in another town close to us, and the accountant there speaks English. Wonderful guy called Carlos. And so I phoned him. I said, look, you don't hold my account, but your firm does. Would it be possible to talk to you about a few things? And so what he then did was I gave him my key to access my finances portal and everything like that. And I'd explained to him what we do here. And he was like, you've been registered wrong. You've been registered as a service rather than as a shop.
Yeah.
And so the difference in that was, rather than being taxed on 75% of the gross that comes out of my till, I now get taxed on 15%.
Very good. Thank you.
Because it takes into account the fact that I have fuel and I have running costs, and I need to put diesel in the tractor and all of these things. And so that was a huge sigh of relief.
I bet. And it was worth challenging, wasn't it? Because you were told that's normal. And of course it was normal given the basis, the context that you first entered into business on, but not what you actually ended up doing.
And the reason, and so people are like, well, maybe you need to change your accountant. But if I'm completely honest about it, if I look back to when I set it up 2 years ago, because my Portuguese wasn't so good.
Yeah.
And I was full of ideas with no real direction. And they're like, what are you doing? It's like, well, I grow olives and I've got chestnuts and...
Okay, we'll put that down. You grow olives.
Yeah. And so I think the chances are that I kind of forged my own problem.
Yeah, we all do, don't we? But and unwittingly and innocently. But that doesn't stack up, does it, in the eyes of finances? Too bad. This is normal for what you said you did, and this is what you owe.
Yeah, exactly that. And so the good part, and it took this long to show, because obviously when we put in for our first year's accounts, everything had been an expense because we hadn't even actually opened a door.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went unnoticed at that point. But now we've got everything sorted out, and it feels like it's going, properly and correctly. The one thing that has happened is now I have a very good line of contact with my accountants.
Good.
They keep me in line with everything. And so that was one tribulation. And then about 4 days after that, so I'd had the dip in enthusiasm and then the rush of euphoria of getting it sorted out. And then had a letter from the local Camara saying that even though I'd gone through the full planning process and architects and engineers at the Camera had been involved, and I'd employed an architect and engineers to do all the qualification work and everything like that, that they needed some clarification on some paperwork as to whether we were legally allowed to be a shop or not.
No.
And so, and I'm looking at the list, and it's got bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3, bullet point 4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. It's like, I looked at it and I was like, wow, remembering all the stuff I had to do. And I'm just like, well, that looks like everything. They want clarification on absolutely everything.
Yes.
including a fire data safety sheet for having a shop in a high risk fire area. Oh, 1 second, my neighbour.
All right, Matty, what do you make of this? While Jason just pops to see his neighbour, that's a nice slice of country life, isn't it?
Yep.
We found you an accountant, though, Matty. Look, I love my Portuguese accountant and I'm highly recommending her to people I know. Let me know if you're looking for a really competent, friendly, responsive, English-speaking Portuguese accountant. But this is the problem you've got, right? You're not getting a response.
Yeah, well, I'm at the same firm as Jason. He recommended them to me.
Oh, right.
And I'm trying, since I bought my Quinta, to have a meeting with them to talk about all the things I need to be done.
Yeah.
And if I have waited for them, I would have now a tax fine on the buying price because I wasn't registered there at taxes with a new address, because you only have 6 months to be registered at Finanzas with your new address. Because when I bought the place, I got a discount on the taxes because it's going to be my permanent residence.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of stuff myself. They stopped replying to my emails. They don't take my phone calls, and I'm pretty pissed about them, to be honest.
I can understand that. And it kind of shows, doesn't it? It's a bit like banking here. It's not about the company. It's about the individual you find to work with.
Yeah.
And this is a reoccurring story here, isn't it? In understanding the culture that you're now living and working in. You can't make expectations based on what you already know. That's for sure, isn't it? You've got to get rid of all you think you know about dealing with accountants in the country of origin. And then you have to create a good relationship with somebody, with a person. And that's what it comes down to. It's a relationship culture, not a transaction or corporate culture.
Yeah, and that's the point, because the person I started with, she was good. She spoke English. She replied to emails.
Yeah.
Then she left, and the new one was also replying. And when she left, nobody even told me she left. So at some point, I got the mail from the owner of the company. Yeah, she left, and from now on, you send mails directly to me, which I did, and he never replies.
Right. Well, that it would appear from what we can take from this, from our really hard-won experience here, you've got to find somebody who you can talk to, haven't you? And you can't leave it, because if you leave it, you will rack up fines and you'll find yourself in more and more difficulty. And it is a matter of like ending relationships that don't work and starting one that does. And I'm guessing that Portuguese people know the people they're dealing with, not just in that professional relationship, but they know them from school, or they know them from a club they go to, or they're a family.
At least they know where they live, so they can come by at night and tell them their opinion.
And have a drink with them. See them down the bar and say, "Yeah, okay, I got it. You're a bit stuck. Give me a ring in the morning." It's about the relationships, isn't it? We need to know from Jason. And I'm sorry, Matty, it's like that, but it's not unusual. And you just got to keep going, because you have a responsibility, don't you, to meet. And if you don't get the help you need, you've got to find it from somewhere else. But Jason, what happened with the camera then?
And so, again, I got pretty flustered. It was like, oh, wow, I can't believe this is happening twice in 1 week. And so I got in contact with my accountant, a really, really, really lovely lady who lives locally, explained what was going on. And she was like, oh, this doesn't sound right. They're asking you to explain everything. We put a full pack in. And so I met her at the camera offices the very next day.
Relationships.
Armed with absolutely every single piece of hard copy paper that I had.
Yes.
And what it appears had happened was the architect at the camera that we've been dealing with, who's also was a real help to us, both her and the engineer. And so we'd gone through the whole process, and they'd approved it. They'd given me a checklist of stuff that I had to satisfy in order for it to happen. We'd done that, put it back in. But on the day that I went in to go and close everything, neither of those guys were there. And so we've handed all the paperwork over to somebody else in the camera, paid the tax, and everything like that. I've left. It's done.
Yeah, assuming.
And then that then has to move on to another department within the camera. It's like, and so then it's dealing with the vice president of the whole of Pedroga Grande area. And he's looking at the fact that we paid the imposto and that we're now operating as a shop. And he can't see any of the qualification because it's on a desk somewhere.
Yeah.
And had been forgotten to be passed to somebody. And so as far as he's concerned, I'd taken a house, a non-existent house that I didn't have, and then changed the use on it from a house to a shop.
Oh, my word.
And so he was like, wow, there isn't a house in this location. And so what on earth is going on? It's like, where's everything from finances? And so we went in there armed with all of this stuff. And brilliantly, the architect and the engineer that we dealt with were in there, remembered us because they were completely behind the idea of what we were trying to do. And they thought it was a great idea. And so while they're all talking and everything like that, I'm sat with the president and he's looking through all of my paperwork. And I've just looked at him and said, cheguei com muito dinheiro e sem papel. 3 anos depois, não tenho dinheiro e tenho muito papel. It's like, I arrived here 3 years ago with loads of money and no paper. And I've got this folder and I'm like, now, 3 years later, I've got loads of paper and no money.
Yes.
And so obviously that's made him laugh a little bit and also got across the fact that I can speak a little bit of Portuguese. And then I impressed upon him how important it was for us because it's like I've got my family here, my daughter's in school. And so he's looking through everything and he can see that we've had a brand new build and he can see the engineer's report and everything like that. And he's like, okay, this makes a lot more sense.
Thank goodness for that.
And so my next job this morning is go onto my finances portal and they want to see proof, and it has to be current proof that I'm registered to trade as a shop.
Yeah. And
then I need to go down to the registry office and pay yet another €20 for a caderneta prediage, which shows that we have a permanent situation here and that the land has been re-registered. And so it's gone from rustico to Mista, so we've got rustico and an urbano, and we also now have a commercial designation on the land. And so, but in that 1 week, it's like found a great distributor. Yay! Gonna have to pay everything in tax. Boo! Sorted out the accountant. Yay!
Yep, it is.
Camera
It is
taking the shop away. Boo!
Mate, it's the ups and downs of running a business here, isn't it? And the reason that's appeared on the screen is I've started a new news and information site and a podcast, just snippets of information, news stories that I think might be of interest to people. So we got the big NHR plot twist, expats everywhere's new video of 12 best cities to live in Portugal. We had a lovely chat with Linda Keith on the Portugal Club last week. Here's a new one. Makes you fluent. Has anyone tried that? The webinar.
Had a look at that website.
Is it good?
Well, they said that they were looking for 10 people.
Yes, that attracted me as well. But let's come back to that because. Oh yeah, okay. Was it a bit of a con?
Well, then they were looking for 10 people, and I figured, wow, you're looking for 10 people, and you'll get a free go. And then all it was a subscription. And every time I said, "Oh, I'll think about it later," they kept cutting the price.
Yeah, nicely done. I thought it might be something like that. But what I was scrolling to here is a couple of podcasts. I read these two stories out for people who want to hear it like a radio show. What is the productivity rate in Portugal? And Portugal celebrates perfect Euro 24 qualification campaign. If you look at this one, this is Scott over in the States. A friend in Gumper was saying, what do you make of this? What is the productivity rate in Portugal? It's very low. We are not here in Portugal one of the most productive per hour. And when Jason tells you a story like that, you begin to understand why, don't you? That the processes are not geared up for efficiency or even understanding or productivity. And that's when it all goes a bit wrong and when it's a bit unfortunate. And I'm so glad you hung on in there, Jason. But I can understand why you wouldn't have done. What a nightmare you've been through.
I don't think that this is just particular to being an immigrant setting up a business.
No,
in
it's
Portugal.
not. It's not. It's just it adds a complication that you are. Yeah.
Yeah. I was speaking to somebody, and so one of our agricultural suppliers, a really great guy, I've been going there for a couple of years now, and he kind of knows what we're doing, but has never really asked. And so I was in there buying bottles to put cider into, and it's like, oh, how's your business going and stuff. And so I showed him some of the Facebook stuff and bits and pieces like that. And basically, he turned around to me, he said, very well done. It's like, if you've got this up and running and everything is legal, he said, very well done to you. He said, because as an estrangero, you haven't had anybody to hold, as he put it, hold the door open for you.
Right.
And so, when you're talking about those personal relationships,
yeah,
and everything like that, it's business based around community.
Yeah.
And so this is why it was so important for us, for our daughter to go to school in Portugal. Because if we're going to be here in 18 years, essentially what happens is all of those jobs get split up amongst your peers.
Yes.
But it's those relationships of knowing each other and living in villages or in areas over a 20, 30 year period.
Well said.
And it isn't nepotism.
It's just how things work.
It is how things work.
Yeah.
And if you're a part of that, then I'm sure that makes it very easy and natural. But I would suspect that if you had moved from, say, Lisbon as a Portuguese person to anywhere else in the country and tried to set up a business, that you would have the same constraints and difficulties and challenges.
It's not prejudice, is it? It's just how things work.
Not at all.
And you're not part of it, and that's just a fact rather than an injury of some sort. I mean, it's like us, isn't it? We talk to each other because we gravitate towards each other. The man cave, the guys know each other, don't they? They're on a similar wavelength, and that's how it works, I think, in most parts of the world. And it's an added challenge if you're not part of that, and you've got to be up against it as well. So well done, mate. We're a little bit past 10. So
the upshot of it is now, hit me up if you want parsnips or Brussels.
Exactly. Every cloud has a silver lining, doesn't it?
I've got what you want.
This is it. He's your man. Exclusive sprouts, parsnips, and Swede. I want you to be wearing one of those brown sort of grocer's overalls, and you just open it up, and inside sprouts, parsnips, and Swedes are hanging there, exposing all of these lovely organic wares of yours. Thank you very much, Matty. Thanks for being here, sharing your situation. Thank you, Jason, for sharing yours. It was good to see Lee earlier on. I meant to share this with him. We've got the dad jokes for you, of course. This is meant to be shared out with Lee earlier on. I got fired from my landscaping job for being a little rough around the edges. That's perfect for McGrady, isn't it? And my friends only keep me around to make their own lives seem less embarrassing. Yeah, I guess we could all claim that.
You can do something about that.
Yes, get new friends. I hate that feeling after surgery when you're not sure if you're awake or asleep, or if you operated on the right patient. Very good. Jason, Matty, see you soon. And it's great to check in with you, every month just to see what's been going on. And well done, fellas. But I mean, you've been up against it clearly, haven't you, in the last little while? So well done. Hang on in there. You're part of a community here. Whilst you're not part of the communities we mentioned before, and that makes it a bit difficult, we do have this community here, don't we, for shoulders to cry on and a little bit of moral support every now and then. So thank you for coming and sharing.
Cheers.
All right, a nice big round of applause to you. Go well, my friends. Take care. Bye for now, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bom dia, Portugal!
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP Morning Show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another